Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we have a little bit of a discussion video. In today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my knife review process. And by further extension, kind of my philosophy on knives, I guess is the way to put it. I've decided to do this because I think it's important for my viewers to kind of know, what my biases are, what my kind of way of thinking is, what I like and don't like generally, because even as much as reviewers try to remain unbiased and completely objective, we do have our own sets of biases. We have our own ways of thinking, and obviously we have we know what we like and what we don't like. And so I just kind of wanted to go through that in this video because, yeah, like I said, I think it's important for you guys to kind of know where I'm coming from with my knife reviews. So, let's talk a little bit about how I review a knife. And it's pretty simple. When I get a knife in, such as this WE Knives Minax, which I've had for quite a while now and am working on reviewing, I take them out, and the first thing I do is flip them a little bit, of course. Kind of get an idea of how the quality is out of the box, which is important. Check the centering, blade play, lock rock, see if it's sharp, see if the action's good, all that kind of stuff. And then I put it in my pocket, and I carry it. And I carry a knife until I think that I know enough about it to make a video about it. And this varies from knife to knife, of course. For example, you have things like the Cold Steel 8015 Light, which I carried to work and a lot of places for months. And I used it for all kinds of things, and I really, really went out of my way to not just use it, but aggressively test it. And the reason I did that was because, one, it's a very tough, hard-use type of knife, and two, it was a knife that, for me at least, felt like all other reviewers were just saying, oh yeah, it's cool, but too expensive. And so I really wanted to, not sound like a broken record, not just repeat what everyone else was saying. So I really wanted to give this knife, give it its all, and see what I thought about it. So, yeah, and you can definitely check out the review on this knife here. So yeah, that's an example of a knife that I carried for a long, long time. Other knives, such as this, I don't have to carry for nearly as long. This is the Sincut episode, and I carried this guy for a week before I reviewed him. And I did carry him every day of that week, and I used him, and I enjoyed carrying him, but it didn't take me very long before I felt like I knew everything I needed to know about this knife. Because, well, honestly, it's a, $46 micarta 9CR18 budget flipper. That's very, very similar to a Civivi. Amazing geometry, cool looks, and I mean, nothing against this knife, but I've handled knives that are very similar to this. I've handled a lot of knives that are almost identical to this. So I carried it for a little bit until I figured out what was unique about it, and I felt like, okay, I know what to say, and so I did. Another thing, too, is I do not carry all my knives in the same manner, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So here we have three knives, the Kizer Lieb, the Cold Steel 4MAX Scout, and the Tuya NV3. And all these knives are very different, and I do enjoy all three of these knives quite a bit, but I enjoy them for different reasons. And as such, when I carried them, I didn't use them all the same, therefore I cannot review them all the same. Kizer Lieb. Great snappy action, tiny knife, great fifth pocket carry. And when I carried this knife, it was as a secondary carry. The 4MAX Scout. Big old tank of a knife. I carried it to work and I beat the tar out of it. I abuse this knife. That's not something I'm going to do with the Tuya Knives NV3. This is a $230 titanium liner lock. It's just not that kind of knife. So I carry it as a primary EDC around the house, to town. I use it for smaller things. So what exactly do I look for when I'm carrying a knife for review? There's a few things that are really important to me, and there's some things that aren't really important to me. And I'm actually going to start with what's not important to me. Weight really is not important to me. And you'll notice in a lot of my reviews, I do not mention weight all that often. I don't, because to me, the shape of the knife is what matters a lot more for carry. So things, for example, like the Formax Scout again. 10-ounce knife, but I think it carries good. Granted, I do wear jeans a lot, and I'm used to carrying lots of stuff with me for my job. But another reason I don't feel like it's necessary to mention weight all the time is because I think that you can kind of look at a knife and know if you're going to carry it. For example, this Avivi Vexor. This is not a particularly heavy knife, but it's a big knife. And so if you don't like big knives, you're not going to like the Vexor, even if it's, pretty light for a big knife. However, if you just love the looks of the Vexor, you're going to carry it, even if it's a little heavy for you. So I don't mention weight all that often, unless the weight is just astronomically light or astronomically heavy for the size. Unless it's on either side of the extreme, I'm not going to mention the weight. So, yeah, there you have it. And I guess that's really the only thing that I don't really mention that much that other people do. So let's go ahead and get into, what's important to me with a knife. And the first thing is ergos. I love a knife with good ergos. And all these knives that you see here have good ergos. And by the way, these are the Civivi Knives Vexor, which is about $55. The CJRB Mini Feldspar, these start at like $33, although this one is a Blade HQ exclusive with S35 VN blade steel. Focus on that. Yeah, thank you. That I custom dyed. So that one was about $70. And this is the Tucson TS number I don't care to remember, but it's called the Megalodon, and I paid $135 for this. So, yeah, got a little bit of everything represented here. So yeah, ergos. That's something that I care a whole lot about, and I'll talk in depth about ergos. And there's a lot of things with ergos that I appreciate with the Vexor. You have a forward choil here, which is nice, but even without using it, you have a very, very solid grip. The Mini Feldspar, very neutral ergos, which I really, really like. On this guy, it doesn't look like he'd be comfortable. He is comfortable, and one of the reasons is because he's thick. That's another thing that I do not really care about, I guess, that some people do, is the thickness of a knife, because in my mind, the thicker the handle, the more comfortable the knife. So you can argue with me on that, but yeah, thickness does not bother me all that much. Next thing I look for is just cutting performance. If the blade slices well, I take note of it. And here's the other thing, too. Again, I was talking about using knives in their appropriate settings. I judge the cutting performance of, let's say, the Feldspar a lot different than I judge the cutting performance of the 8015. And the reason is because they have completely different geometries for completely different purposes. I mean, one is an EDC knife, and an average EDC knife. The other is a workhorse, a hard-use workhorse. So I don't really grade on the same scale as each other, but I do pay attention to how well the blade functions in its intended role. And yeah, another thing that I do sometimes kind of take note of is blade steel, although I'm not that much of a blade snob as some people, as a blade steel snob as some people. Jeez, I can't talk. I know some people get really steel snobby, but I do care if the steel is appropriate to the knife Again, I'm all about if the design works in its intended purpose, if everything makes sense. For example, Formax Scout. If this was in S110V, I would hate this knife. And I would say it because S110V is not the right steel for this type of knife. However, on my PM2, I do like my S110V because of just the way I use this knife. And you can see I really do use this knife. It's due for a cleaning. 20CV. It works here on the Malice. What's a knife that I have here that... Well, heck, I don't think I'd like to see 20CV on the 8015. So yeah, I like it when designs make sense. Another thing I pay a lot of attention to in my reviews is pocket clips. And unlike some people, I do not prioritize deep carry over everything. I just prioritize whether or not the clip works. So these clips that you see here, so this is the Ontario Rat 1, and I'll say it, you can get these for about 25 bucks. Good clip. Not deep carry, but the clip, plenty of spring, works great in the pocket. The Civivi Riffle, you can get these for about 55 bucks. This one I have dyed. Good clip. One thing about this clip that bothers me though is it only has the 2 screws. The clip is not sunk into the scale, so there's a higher chance of you getting clip wiggle, which I cannot stand clip wiggle. Here, this is again our CJRB mini feldspar. Perfect clip. If a clip is going to be deep carry, I want it completely sunk into the scale. If you're going to have a deep carry loop over clip like this, flat screws recess into the scale. That's what I love to see. That's my favorite thing because no resistance in the pocket and no clip wiggle. So I like that. Titanium clips. This is the Tucson TS 229, I think. Yeah. Titanium clips. This one is a titanium clip. It works. Titanium clips for me, they have to be really good for me to like them because sometimes titanium clips and I do not get along. They sometimes are too tight and, you know, they might tear up your pocket a little bit. This, the Tucson Grampus. Well, not Tucson, Bestech Grampus. Discontinued, but you can get these for, well, on sale prices now. So this clip, kind of a fancy looking clip, not deep carry, but again, it works great as a clip. However, it's not reversible. I like seeing reversible clips just because, you know, I like looking out for the lefties. So, yeah, that is one thing that I look for, is if the clip is reversible. And then, of course, with clips, like this is a great clip here on the Cold Steel 8015. Again, this is another one that I've dyed, and that Grampus was as well. But, yeah, the texturing under the clip was not good, so I had to sand that down. Now it works fine. So, yeah, pocket clips. Next, let's talk a little bit about my price range for pocket knives. I will look at a pocket knife from any price range. I have not looked at anything. Let's see here. What's the most expensive knife I have right now? Yeah, this one is my knife. This is the WE Knives Malice. It's 260 bucks. That's an expensive knife for me right now. I'm not a man of many funds. I'm constantly selling and trading stuff to get new things. This is a knife that is permanently in my collection. But I am not exclusive to, you know, expensive knives. And that's not just because I'm poor. It's because I like taking a look at things of all different price categories. You know, Civivi Vexor, again, about 55 bucks. My favorite knife ever, almost. Cold Steel 815, about 200 bucks. QSP Hawk, about 55 bucks again. However, I'm also not too shy about stepping down a little bit lower in price. This here is the Outdoor Edge Swinky. And this is like a $13 knife. And I'm working on a review for it because I really do like this knife. And I think it offers a lot of cool stuff for 13 bucks. So, yeah. I like to take a look at all kinds of different price ranges. Alright, so now let's talk about my knife biases. And before we start, I want to say, as kind of a little transition from my review process to my biases, I consider myself to be pretty lucky when it comes to my enjoyment of the knife world, because I kind of, my EDC kind of exists in two separate realms. Ooh. But what I mean by that is, I'm a college student. So during the school year, I live in the city as a student, work a normal-ish, grocery store job. And, I don't, I use things that are very much like this. Small, more slicey knives. However, I grew up on a cattle ranch, and in the summers, I come back to my hometown and I help on my parents' ranch, and I also work for another ranch where I'm a ranch hand, and I do a bunch of stuff. And so when I'm at that job, I get to enjoy things that are, a little more hard use, a little bit bigger. I get to, I get to carry a fixed blade to work. So, I kind of have an appreciation for a bunch of different elements of the knife world. I'm a hard use guy, and I also understand what it's like to be just an average Joe, slicing open packages, cutting some tape, minor food prep type deal. So, with that out of the way, what are some of my biases? Well, first of all, I do have a little bit of a bias towards big knives. I like big knives. Now, my preferred carry range for my EDC knives is 3.5 to 4 inches. That's where I like to carry stuff. So here are two of my favorite EDCs. This is the Bestech line. This is a 3.5-inch knife. And this is a Civivi Vexor, which has a 4-inch blade. And so those are this is kind of on the low end of what I like to carry, and this is kind of on the upper end. However, I do carry sometimes things bigger than 4 inches. However, I also really like small knives. I love small knives. I carry a fifth pocket knife everywhere. And so I do like, I like smallish knives as well. Just, for me at least, and this is, again, part of my bias, I would never, ever wake up in the morning, even when I'm down at college, I never wake up in the morning and pick up my Kaiser Lieb, put it in my pocket and be like, yep, I'm good for the day. I just wouldn't. I'd pick up my Kaiser Lieb and be like, ooh, who am I going to carry with you today? Are we going to do the Cold Steel Code 4? Yep, that's a good pairing for the day. So, do have a little bit of a bias towards larger primary knives. Another thing that I really love, again, we're talking about my tastes and biases, not just my biases, but one thing that I really do love is multiple deployment options. And here on this Tucson, this is kind of a great example because you have basically every deployment option. I need to get a hold of Kaiser Cormorant. Be a cool knife. But love multiple deployments a whole lot. Another thing I like is kind of... So here is the WE Minax. I like knives that feel sturdy, that feel really sturdy. And this knife definitely feels sturdy. I already talked about ergos and my, I like a blade that performs good. So I'm not going to really get into that, but I just like knives that feel sturdy. If I'm going to have a titanium frame lock, I want it to feel sturdy. And I also want my titanium frame locks to have a little bit of that cool factor element. In fact, you can kind of see some similarities between two of my favorite titanium frame locks right now. So yeah, I do like aggressive looking blades. I really do. Going on to this guy, something that I like about titanium frame locks is when they match on both sides. I am not a big fan of a frame lock that's just, here's a frame lock I have right now. This is a Sniper Bladeworks DMF, but it has this carbon fiber on one side and nothing on the other side. And I'm not a big fan of that. I like it when they match. So that's definitely a big bias of mine. So, yeah. Next thing, my favorite blade shape is a clip point, a Bowie clip point, to be specific, followed up very closely by, your good old classic drop points. Love me some drop points and clip point blades. Definitely my favorite blade shapes. I love stonewashed finishes, so I always look for that. In terms of material, I like micarta if it's done well, and if it's not done well, I just don't really care for it. G10 is fine for me, and carbon fiber, I think, is really, really cool. Another thing I'm a sucker for, are knives where the blade hides almost entirely inside the handle and makes just a nice shape. I don't know why. I'm just a sucker for that kind of stuff. So, and I'm also a sucker for blue. Oh boy, let's see how many blue knives I have out here. This isn't my whole collection even, but we've got that one blue knife. We have this knife that I dyed blue. This knife 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 I dyed blue. And then I have this blue knife. And I have this blue knife. And is that all the blue knives I have right now? Oh, I guess you can kind of count this because he has a blue pivot collar. So that's another thing I'm a sucker for is pivot collars. Oof. Yeah, I love blue. I've got a really blue problem. Oh man. And of course, I'm a sucker for fidget factor. I kind of mentioned that earlier with the multiple deployments, but just sucker for fidget factor. You gotta love your fidget factor. And I love weird knives. Let's bring out this guy again. I love weird stuff. If I see a knife that I've never seen before that just looks super weird, chances are I will buy it. Because I really do like experiencing the weirdest of the weird. So, yeah. Alright, so to close up here with my preferences and biases, my tastes and whatnot, let's talk a little bit about brand bias. Because, I mean, come on. We all get attached to certain brands. Now, this does not mean that I will never be negative on these brands, because I have. But it means that typically, when I see a new design from this company, I will go for it before any other knife. So, the two brands that I am most biased to like are Cold Steel, which you probably already knew. I am a huge Cold Steel fanboy. I love Cold Steel knives. I carry them, I collect them, I abuse them. And by the way, every knife in my collection gets used. I don't have any safe queens. Every knife I have gets used. They don't all get used for the same thing again, but every knife I have gets used. So anyways, I have a bias towards Cold Steel, and also Bestech. I love Bestech knives. I think Bestech makes some excellent knives. I have a bunch of their budget stuff, and do I have one on the table here? I do not. I have handled several of their higher end knives. I love Bestech. Oh, and of course, we gotta talk about TGRB Feldspar. This knife, just love it. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this, just kind of me rambling about how I review knives, what I like about knives, and of course, a lot of this bleeds out into my reviews, and you can tell watching one of my reviews the things that I really get excited about, the things that I just, kind of don't matter to me. So, I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you found it enjoyable. Wow. Enjoyable. Wow, I hate to ask for this after I just made a goof like that, but like, comment, subscribe. Yeah. Anyways, I've been Gideon. I'll see you in the next video.